online, C-SPAN is your unfiltered view of government, so you can make up your own mind.
Kevin Hassett is the chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisers. He stopped to talk to reporters outside the White House about the economic effects of a closed southern border. He also answered questions on Kirstjen Nielsen's resignation as Homeland Security Secretary. This is about 10 minutes.
Hey. Hello. Few questions. Yes? Yeah. Okay. You got time? I got time, I think.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah. My next is at 8:30.
Kevin, last week the president said he would, in his words, tariff Mexico's cars if Mexico did not cooperate more to reduce the number of migrants heading towards the United States. How does raising a tax on American consumers pressure Mexico at all? And why should Americans have to pay more for cars because of something that the government of Mexico is or isn't doing?
Well, I think you've noticed that my colleague Larry Kudlow has mentioned in the media that we spent a lot of time working on border issues last week at CEA and at NEC, and he's correct about that, and the reporting in that space is correct. And I think that we're looking at the White House for Mexico to step up its game, and I've actually heard some positive reports over the weekend. And there are a heck of a lot of options on the table if that doesn't happen. And the president mentioned last week shutting the border as one option. And one of the things that we at CEA have been doing is studying how one might take steps to secure our border that wouldn't cause economic harm. And so right now I think that the correct message from the White House is just that we're looking for Mexico to step up its game, and all the options are on the table.
Why does he keep describing tariffs as something that other countries? Why does he keep describing tariffs as something that other countries pay into the U.S. Treasury when they're actually taxes paid by American consumers? Why does he keep misstating that?
You should talk to the president about it if you think he's misstated something. I could say that I'm sure that any government anywhere on earth would be upset if someone were to put a tariff on their sales into the U.S., that they wouldn't like that. They wouldn't go around and say, oh, well, we're indifferent about that. They would not like it. And so if you think that you're having a diplomatic problem with a country, then it's an option that you can put on the table.
What do your models show since you've been running them, and specifically to if the border were to shut down?
I think the crucial factor is that freight, that it's possible to allow freight. And if you don't disrupt freight, then the economic disruption would be relatively small. And there's also a lot of people that focus on this, a potential really big benefit if you could stop a lot of the things that are happening, like drugs coming into the U.S. You remember the CEA put out a report about the economic harm from opioid abuse. And so if we could even slow a little bit the opioid abuse, then you get a massive benefit as well.
And if you don't allow freight in?
Yeah, if you don't allow freight in, then...
It's just like pure shutdown.
Yeah, then the numbers can get pretty strong. The negative effect can get a bit larger. The thing is that with just-in-time inventory management, there'll be a few firms that would face potentially, I'll come over that way, I promise, I'm just not looking that way because of the sun, but with just-in-time inventory management, then there would definitely be some firms that could face a significant disruption because they have 1 or 2 days inventory of stuff that comes from Mexico.
Kevin, what were your warnings to the president as it related to what a complete shutdown would be?
I never warned the president. I just analyzed things, and I've analyzed a heck of a lot of things in the last couple of weeks, and I think Larry has accurately characterized some of the things that would happen if one were to stop freight and so on.
So can you characterize for us how damaging would it be if there were a total shutdown?
I think I just did, that there would be some firms that would have to shut right away because of just-in-time inventory. I'll come over here and then I'll work back to the middle. That way I'll look at the sun at the end and blink all the way home.
Are you not concerned about the sexual harassment allegations against Herman Cain and what that could mean for his confirmation?
Well, I've known Herman, I've known Stephen for a really long time. I first met Herman when he ran for president. I think the president has a lot of confidence in both, but we're in the intent to nominate phase. And I was just on Fox Business, and I discussed with Maria that in the intent to nominate phase, it's traditional for people like me to just sort of give people a moment to fill out their forms and talk to the folks. And I can remember with me, personally, one of the things, and Hans knows this, is forever and ever I've been working to rebuild inner city baseball. I started a foundation, the Urban Baseball Foundation. The Office of Government Ethics wanted me to resign from that if I took this job, and I did. I had another partnership interest that wasn't worth very much, but might have some option value, but wouldn't sell for very much, and they wanted me to dispose of it, and my lawyers thought it was ridiculous. So the point is, between intent to nominate and nominate, then the candidates usually are given privacy by you guys and by us, because they have to work all that stuff out with everybody. And I think that right now there's not an official nomination, and so as CEA chair, the appropriate role for me is to step back, support my friends, but hold off and wait until the nomination occurs. And there was actually, Bloomberg covered it as a little bit of newsworthy when I said, well, should they be nominated? But that's exactly how it works for every single nominee, is that there's an intent to nominate, and then people fill out their forms, and then they decide whether they want to move forward after they look at what they have to recuse themselves from and so on, and then the nomination officially goes to the Senate. And at that point, I think it's the right time to debate everything that we've learned about the past. And in part, the process identifies those things as well. I can remember for me, I had to fill out forms, travel forms, going back to something like, I forget what it was, 15 years. I had to remember every trip I took and everybody I met. And so that gave everybody a lot of information about me that they could then use to have a fact-based debate about their candidacy.
Could you sort of big picture for us, with the upheaval in the administration, the staff changes, coupled with the crisis on the border, does that have a potential to affect the economic outlook, and if so, how?
Well, I think everybody expects the government has been functioning very smoothly. We just had another jobs report right around 200,000. The economy is humming along, and the government's functioning well. And I think it's very normal for people to come in for a couple of years and then move on. I think that if you were to go back and look, probably that's almost like the median experience for cabinet folks. I worked closely with Kirstjen Nielsen. I've been here about 2 years when she was Deputy Chief of Staff, and also after she moved over. And I can say that I never was in a meeting where she was other than collegial and productive, and I was in meetings often with her and the president, and the two of them clearly were working well together. And I'm sorry that she's moving on. I'm grateful for her service to the country.
You just said you had confidence, the president had confidence in Herman Cain and Stephen Moore. Does the president also have confidence in Jerome Powell?
You'd have to talk to the president about who he, I'm not speaking for the president on confidence yet.
Kevin, just one quick follow-up. When there was a government shutdown, you gave us the number. It was like 0.1% a week off of growth that it would be. I'm just curious, if there is a border closure, do you have an actual number as to what that would mean for growth?
I would need more clarity on what the border closure is that we're looking at, which ports are closed, and so on, in order to give you an exact number. But it's definitely possible to come up with a range of numbers. But I don't have anything to report on numbers right now. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
And the U.S. House meets at 2 o'clock Eastern to start today's session and go through 1-minute speeches. Then the House will recess until 4:45.